Usually when we talk about gratitude, um, there's this underlying assumption that we're dealing with it just like a polite social habit.
Right, exactly. Someone holds the door, you say thanks.
Yeah, or at its most profound, we treat it as psychology. Like it's a nice little cognitive trick to boost your mood.
A behavioral adjustment,
Yeah,
basically.
right. Something you scribble in a gratitude journal before you go to sleep to, I don't know, lower your blood pressure.
Yeah, we tend to categorize it as this internal emotional state, like it happens purely in our own heads just to make us feel a bit warmer inside,
Or just to grease the wheels of societal interaction.
Mm.
But then you step into the world of metaphysical philosophy.
Oh, and it's a completely different ballgame.
It really is. Suddenly that gratitude journal isn't just a mood booster anymore. Because today we're diving into a framework where gratitude is literal metaphysical physics.
Yeah, it is not just a suggestion for a happy life. It's presented as this structural, undeniable law of the universe.
And that is exactly the premise of the fascinating source we have today. We're looking at a 2005 essay titled Gratitude, the First Element of Life's Sublimation.
Written by Swefeng.
Right, written by Swefeng, translated by Treasure, and edited by Couture. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack how this text completely reframes gratitude from, well, a simple thank you, into the literal foundational engine for evolving the human soul.
And before we dig into the specific mechanics of this, we really need to establish exactly what kind of text we're dealing with here.
That line.
This essay essentially acts as a blueprint for human existence. The entire framework hinges on a specific ultimate goal, which the author calls the sublimation of life.
Which is a huge concept. And speaking of that framework, I actually need to offer a quick but really important disclaimer for you listening.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Because this text contains very specific religious and spiritual claims. It brings in figures like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and Lao Tzu.
And attributes creation to a greatest creator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our goal in this deep dive is absolutely not to endorse or take sides on any of these theological views. We aren't here to debate religion.
Right, nor are we validating these specific spiritual claims as objective fact.
Exactly, yeah. We're simply here to impartially unpack the incredible philosophical architecture the author presents. Because whether you view this as literal truth or just an elaborate thought experiment, the mechanical elegance of how the author constructed this worldview is absolutely fascinating.
It really is. That analytical distance is key here. We're looking at the physics of this specific worldview. In this system, the ultimate purpose of being alive is this relentless process of sublimation.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to understand sublimation, we really have to look at the terminology.
Yeah, the chemistry aspect of it.
Right, it's because in high school chemistry, sublimation is the process where a dense, heavy solid turns instantly into a light floating gas.
Completely bypassing the liquid phase.
Exactly. Think of like dry ice turning directly into fog. The author is applying that exact concept to us.
But to understand what is actually turning into gas, we have to look at how the author defines life. And they use a capital L for that.
Yeah, they aren't talking about your heart beating or your neurons firing. They define life as a non-material structure.
And that is the crucial pivot that sets up everything else in the essay. We usually think of life as a biological process, right? Breathing, eating, cellular division.
Sure, the physical stuff.
Right. But Shifeng argues that parallel to your physical biological body, you possess this non-material structure. And crucially, this structure has a definable shape.
Wait, a shape, not just an energy field.
Exactly. It is not a vague, formless cloud of spiritual energy. It can be perfectly symmetrical, beautiful, and refined.
Or the opposite, I'm guessing.
Right. Or it can be completely deformed, jagged, and unbalanced.
Wow. And this brings us to one of the most relatable analogies in the entire text, I think.
The one about daily interactions.
Yeah. The author makes a claim about how these structural deformities actually manifest in our daily lives. So think about this. Have you ever been around someone and for no logical reason, you just feel unutterably upset?
Oh, yeah. Like immediately drained.
Right. You get irritable or even disgusted by them, even if they haven't explicitly done anything wrong to you yet.
Just a bad vibe.
Exactly. But the author says this isn't a manufactured feeling. And it isn't just you being judgmental. It's an instinctive rejection.
A literal allergic reaction.
Yes. It is essentially a spiritual immune response, an allergic reaction to someone's lack of gratitude.
What's fascinating here is how the implications of that completely reframe human interaction. In our day-to-day lives, if we find someone deeply unpleasant or toxic, we usually categorize it as a personality
Or
clash.
psychological incompatibility, yeah.
Exactly. But in this framework, a lack of gratitude directly equates to a deformed non-material structure. So bad behavior isn't just a moral failing.
It's structural.
Yes. It's an actual structural deformity of a person's non-material self. You're sensing their asymmetrical, deformed shape.
And your own structure is reacting to it with involuntary disgust. So, like, think about the last time you were incredibly drained by a complaining coworker.
Or a constantly negative friend.
Yeah. The author isn't saying you just need a nap or some alone time. They're saying your soul was enduring literal structural friction.
Wow, yeah.
Your non-material structure was basically scraping against their deformed structure.
And the text explicitly states that these deformities lack beauty, which creates this instinctive, non-artificial rejection.
Is biology.
Well, a biological level repulsion happening on a non-material plane.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if our non-material structures have different shapes based on our gratitude, the logical next step is exploring where these different shapes actually end up in the universe.
Right, they have to go somewhere.
Yeah. If you have a symmetrical structure versus a deformed one, where do you go?
Well, every structure requires an environment suited to its nature, so the author introduces a strict spatial hierarchy.
A spatial hierarchy.
Yeah, think of it as a cosmic sorting mechanism, and it's based entirely on the quality and density of your non-material structure.
Okay. The text lays out these specific tiers of existence. Like, it argues that animals have less perfect structures.
So they are bound to the lower animal level.
Yeah, but humans who achieve a perfect nature don't just stay here on Earth. They become celestial beings.
And they transit into these incredibly vivid higher realms.
Right, which the author calls the 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world.
And the author relies on this really brilliant scientific metaphor to explain the spiritual migration. They compare this cosmic sorting to gases in our own atmosphere.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, we know that the atmosphere is layered, right? You have the troposphere at the bottom where the weather happens.
Right, we are.
Exactly. And then you have the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the ionosphere.
And the exosphere at the very edge of space.
Right. And gases naturally separate into these layers based on their molecular structures and densities.
So the heavy, dense stuff stays near the bottom, while the lighter elements rise to the top.
Exactly. It's effortless. It is just the physics of buoyancy.
Right.
The author posits that our non-material life structures do the exact same thing in the cosmos. A deformed, ungrateful structure is dense, jagged, and heavy.
So it sinks.
Yes, it sinks to the lower spaces. But a perfect symmetrical structure is incredibly light. It naturally floats up to the stratosphere, or the ionosphere of existence.
The 1,000-year and 10,000-year world.
Exactly. You don't have to force your way up. Your structure just naturally rises to the level it belongs based on its buoyancy.
Wait, I have to jump in here, because this leaves a massive gap in the practical application.
How so?
Well, if my placement in the entire universe is determined by my spiritual buoyancy, how do I actually become lighter? Like, if I'm sitting here in the heavy, dense troposphere of daily human life, bogged down by traffic and bills and stress, how do I achieve this sublimation?
You're asking what the heat source is.
Exactly. What is the heat source that turns the heavy solid into the rising gas?
The author provides a very definitive answer to that. Gratitude?
Gratitude is the heat source.
Gratitude is the mechanism of sublimation. It's the active tool that literally files down the deformed edges of your non-material structure.
And shapes it into perfect symmetry.
Right, thereby reducing its density.
It's like the anti-gravity engine for the soul.
Exactly. By actively practicing gratitude, you are literally altering your non-material molecular weight. You're making yourself buoyant enough to ascend.
Which brings us to the practical application. Because the author doesn't just leave us with a vague, good vibes instruction to just be thankful.
No, they are very specific.
Very. They provide a highly specific 8-part framework of targets for our gratitude. And what I find so compelling is how these targets aren't just listed out like a table of contents.
They represent a complete spectrum of existence.
Exactly. Let's look at the macro level first, the cosmic and the sensual. The very first target is the greatest creator.
But the reasons the author gives aren't abstract theological concepts at all.
Right. They're beautifully grounded in sensory experience. The text asks us to be grateful for bright eyes to see the starry skies, rivers, and flowers.
For ears to hear nature's melodies.
Yes, for the free but invaluable air and pure water. It frames the creation of the universe as a gift specifically designed for human sensory appreciation.
And within that same breath, there's a detail that genuinely surprised me.
Oh, about physical intimacy.
Yes, in the middle of thanking the creator for starry skies and pure water, the author explicitly includes love and affection between men and women.
Yeah, they refer to physical and emotional pleasures as blissful slices of heaven, which is wild because in so many esoteric spiritual texts, physical pleasure is treated as an anchor,
Right, like something dense and heavy that you must transcend.
or completely ignore to become spiritual. But here, physical intimacy is celebrated as a divine gift right alongside the sun and the rain.
It is something crucial to be grateful for. Grounding the divine in the human experience is a recurring theme here. The mechanism of sublimation doesn't require ascetic detachment from human joy.
It requires you to immerse yourself in that joy.
And appreciate it deeply. From that massive cosmic scale, the author narrows the focus slightly to the spiritual architects of humanity. Target 2 encompasses figures like Jesus Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, and Lao Tse.
But again, let's look at the why. Why are they grouped together? The text thanks Jesus for his atonement and bringing hope to human suffering.
And thanks the others for wisdom that resolves inner sadness.
Right. It says they give us inexhaustible and precious spiritual values.
But the author isn't demanding allegiance to one specific dogma or pitting these figures against each other.
No, not at all.
In the context of non-material physics, these figures are treated almost as master engineers. Their teachings are literal tools left behind to help humanity smooth out the deformities in our collective structures.
I love that. Then the text shifts from the cosmic and historical down to the intimate and generational. We move to targets 3 and 6. Parents and teachers.
And the metaphor used for parents is just stunning.
It really is. The author writes that a parent's love is so heavy that even a green mountain cannot carry it, and even time and space cannot extinguish it.
Let's analyze that metaphor for a moment. Why a green mountain?
Because it's huge.
Well, a mountain is immense, yes. It's foundational. It dictates the weather and the landscape around it. A parent's sacrifice is essentially the landscape upon which your life is built.
Oh, wow.
So to ignore that, to lack gratitude for that immense foundational weight, is to introduce a massive structural flaw into your own non-material geometry.
That makes so much sense.
Huh.
And similarly, teachers are thanked because we stand on their shoulders. We are also told to thank our children for the joy they bring, and our friends and relatives for comfort in times of trouble.
But then, the text moves to the final, most mundane level of interaction.
Right. After talking about the greatest creator, Jesus, Buddha, and the green mountains of parental love, we are told we must thank our colleagues, our classmates.
And even passing strangers.
Yeah, for their sincere praise and cooperation. Oh, and people with high ideals for drawing their swords to help in emergencies.
The inclusion of drawn swords adds such a dramatic flair.
It really does.
It highlights those who step in during moments of acute crisis. But placing the passing stranger and the cooperative colleague on the exact same list as the creator of the universe is a very deliberate structural choice by the author.
So what does this all mean? Look at the sheer spectrum we just covered.
It's massive.
We were talking about someone cooperating with you on a spreadsheet at work, or a stranger holding the elevator for you. The author is telling us that to achieve sublimation, you can't just be grateful for the big existential things.
No, the fleeting, mundane interactions matter just as much.
Exactly. They matter to the symmetry of your non-material structure.
Because if gratitude is a physical law, then it must apply universally from the macro to the micro. I mean, gravity doesn't just keep planets in orbit, right?
Gravity also makes a pebble fall to the ground.
Exactly. In the same metaphysical framework, the gratitude you feel for the starry sky operates on the exact same mechanical level as the gratitude you feel for a coworker handing you a stapler.
Huh. Both actions actively smooth out the deformities in your life structure.
Both actions increase your buoyancy.
That makes every single interaction incredibly high stakes. Like, you can't sit on a mountaintop meditating on the cosmos, feeling spiritually superior, and then be a jerk to the barista who gets your coffee order wrong.
If you are, your structure deforms right there in the coffee shop.
And down to the troposphere you go.
Exactly. Which brings us to the necessary warning built into every philosophical framework.
Right, because there's always a warning.
We've explored the mechanism of gratitude and the heights it can take us to. But we must address the cost of ingratitude. What happens to those who refuse to participate in this daily practice?
And the text doesn't pull any punches here. It outlines a very stark binary. It states that real happiness, real light, and bright futures belong exclusively to the appreciative givers of thanks.
There's absolutely no middle ground.
None.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a profound contrast between the celestial beings rising to the 10,000-year world and the ultimate fate of the ungrateful.
The text says those without gratitude have no love in their hearts, they never repent, and they lack humanity.
And crucially, they are doomed to fall into the evil wallows of power, money, and fame.
Wait, I struggle with this part a little.
Yeah.
Let me push back on this,
Yeah.
because we look out at the real world and we see incredibly ungrateful, ruthless, toxic people who have all the power and money. They step on everyone to get to the top. So from the outside, they don't look like they are in an evil wallow.
Yeah.
They look like they are winning. They live in luxury. How does this framework account for the CEO who lacks all gratitude but seems to have everything?
That's a great point. The framework accounts for it by completely separating material success from non-material buoyancy.
Okay.
In this system, power, money, and fame are not markers of elevation. They are the muck.
Oh, I see.
They are incredibly dense, heavy material anchors. So the ruthless CEO might have a penthouse, sure,
But spiritually?
but their non-material structure is so jagged, so heavy, and so thoroughly deformed by their ingratitude that they are metaphysically sinking. They become trapped by their material desires.
Yeah.
They will never attain the chance to ascend to a higher space of life because those material things have absolutely no buoyancy in the higher realms. They are tethered to the lowest, heaviest layer of existence.
So the penthouse is literally just a really well-decorated troposphere.
Basically, yeah.
That phrase, evil wallows, it paints such a visceral picture of pigs in mud, just trapped by their own heavy desires.
He really does.
And that perfectly sets up the punchline of this entire essay, because up until now, we've been dealing with very elevated concepts.
Atmospheric layers, the ionosphere, profit.
10,000-year world, all of it.
Yeah.
But then we reach the conclusion, which is dated August 16th, 2005, and the author addresses the reader directly as comrades.
Which is an amazing tone shift.
It is, and they deliver an argument that is so surprisingly blunt, it almost gives you rhetorical whiplash.
It's so abrupt, but it serves a very specific purpose.
The author writes, quote, "Comrades, learn gratitude. Even dogs know how to wag their tails to give thanks. Are we not as good as dogs?"
I love that part. We have spent this entire deep dive exploring the highly elevated metaphysics of non-material symmetry.
And the sublimation of life into celestial realms.
Right, and then the author brings it all crashing down to earth with a single, universally understood image. A dog wagging its tail.
It is genuinely funny, but it's also a devastating critique.
It grounds the entire philosophical framework in raw instinct. What the author is illustrating is that gratitude is so fundamental, so deeply baked into the structural nature of existence, that even an animal instinctively understands the physics of appreciation.
Because earlier in the text, animals were established as existing in a lower space.
Exactly, with less perfect structures. Yet, even a dog receives a treat, feels appreciation, and wags its tail.
It completes the circuit of gratitude without needing to intellectualize it at all.
And the challenge to us is razor sharp. If we, with our supposedly superior human structures, capable of comprehending the starry skies and the wisdom of Lao Tzu,
Right.
if we cannot manage the basic decency to feel appreciation when a colleague helps us or a parent sacrifices for us, then metaphysically speaking, we are failing a test that a golden retriever passes every single day.
Wow. Are we not as good as dogs?
Yeah. If you are ungrateful, you are ignoring a fundamental law of existence that even a dog obeys. Your non-material structure is not just failing to ascend, it is actively degenerating below the baseline of the animal kingdom.
The author is basically stripping away all the academic theorizing we do around gratitude.
Because the practice of gratitude isn't meant to be an esoteric exercise. It is a lived, active, moment-to-moment reality. The text explicitly says it is by giving thanks daily that our non-material structure can ceaselessly evolve into perfection.
Are we not as good as dogs?
Yeah.
It's the ultimate reality check. It asks a very simple question. Are you completing the circuit? Are you wagging your tail when someone is good to you?
Exactly.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the idea that being annoyed by a toxic person isn't just an emotion, but a spiritual allergy.
An instinctive rejection of their deformed non-material structure.
Yeah, and we looked at how gratitude acts as a cosmic sorting hat, using the physics of atmospheric buoyancy to separate the heavy, ungrateful souls from the perfectly symmetrical celestial beings.
We explored the expansive spectrum of gratitude, finding that the cosmic weight of parental love heavy as a green mountain sits right alongside the everyday necessity of thanking a stranger for holding a door.
Because the physical law applies equally to both.
Precisely.
And we ended in the evil wallows of power and money, being reminded by the author that if we can't manage a simple thank you, we are metaphysically being outperformed by the family pet. It is a framework that completely reshapes how you might view every single interaction in your day.
This raises an important question, actually, one that builds on everything we've discussed but takes it a step further.
Okay, what is it?
Well, we've talked exclusively about individual buoyancy, but if our individual gratitude literally shapes our non-material structures, what does that mean for the collective structure of society?
Oh, wow.
If a culture becomes entirely transactional, cynical, and ungrateful, does the collective non-material structure of that society become deformed?
That's a fascinating point.
Can an entire culture sink into the troposphere, weighed down by the evil wallows, or float into the stratosphere based purely on its daily habits of appreciation?
That is an incredibly heavy thought to leave hanging in the air. The aerodynamics of an entire society relying on whether or not we say thank you.
It really makes you think.
It does. Next time someone hands you your coffee or holds the elevator, remember, you aren't just being polite. You might just be fine-tuning the buoyancy of your own soul and maybe even keeping all of us a little higher off the ground.
Very true.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and we will catch you next time.